Hi, I'm Bill Story of the Olderhood Group, and I welcome you to our Future Living series. And my guest today is Ian Price, who's a financial consultant based in the UK. Hi, Ian. How are you today?
Very well indeed, Bill. It's, as always, lovely to see you.
Great. So I think, Ian, we want to chat today about, do I need a financial advisor? What is the benefit of having a financial advisor? And if I may just prompt you for a little bit later in the broadcast here, I want to draw the distinction between a financial advisor and an investment advisor. They are connected, but I think they're separate. But we'll get to that a wee bit later on. So, do I need a financial advisor, Ian?
I've always come from the position that the answer is yes. And you've explained why, Bill, and we can discuss this. I think the key thing with the financial advisor, any financial advisor, there's a couple of things you should do. One, you should always go and find somebody you get on with and you trust. Absolute paranoid. So they are going to help you manage your hard-earned money to protect you and your family against so many different situations. Now, even we've mentioned this before, even though I've been in financial services, lucky enough to believe not nearly 45 years, I have got a financial advisor that looks after me. He gives me absolute peace of mind. And it's a bit like a decorator. I've said this before. Sometimes a decorator's house is the worst painted house because they can't be bothered when they get home. A bit like financial advice. Even sometimes I don't want to talk about finances. So my advisor, who happens to be called Rob, he is part of the family now. He sits on the periphery. He helps me and my wife and my daughters. So I think, to me, the benefit of a financial advisor is to help you make those sometimes simple decisions and sometimes really hard decisions by telling you the consequences of action and inaction, Bill. I've seen too many people not take people's financial advice and live to regret it at a later date. The classic to me is, I'm passionate, like you, Bill, about having protection in place in case something happens. I've never met a widow or widower who's ever complained there was too much life cover in place at the time, untimely death. But I have seen families really suffer where life cover has not been put in place. So to me, a financial advisor adds a level of protection, I think, for me and my family. So I'm a massive fan that get the right financial advisor at the right time. They can help you and reassure you.
Yeah, I think you make a very interesting point there regarding the family. In other words, you have a financial advisor for everyone in the family. It's not just for you and or your wife. Because and I know I find this, with our family when we talk about finances. I think sometimes, being an old, an old fogey like me, I think sometimes, I kind of miss the thoughts and ideas and perhaps feelings of the younger generation. They see things differently. Whether it's social media driven or whatever, it doesn't really matter, sort of thing. And I think that's where the financial advisor can come in and say, "Whoa, Bill, just think about this for a minute. You're seeing it through your, shall we say, older eyes, which is fine. However, through the younger eyes, they may see things a little bit differently. So I don't think the financial advisor in that sense is what you might call a referee, as such. But I think he or she certainly brings a very nice, very palatable difference of thoughts and probably action.
Bill, I love the word old fogey. I should tell you a lovely little story that would cheer everybody up. In the UK, we've got half term. My wife's a school teacher. So yesterday we decided to go to Bath to the Ivy restaurant as a bit of to celebrate. This old fogey managed to book the restaurant online for the wrong date. So it wasn't a good meal out yesterday. But the other side of that, which links back to that, I've literally just had a message from my daughter to explain that she's just sold her apartment. She's doing it herself. So as an old fogey, I've had to take a step back to be in the background. She's got the right advice in place. And fun enough, one of the big debates, not debates, one of the things we've got in plan within the next couple of weeks, Rob, who looks after me, is coming around to meet the whole family together, myself, Nicole, and our daughters. Now is the time to do this real, what have I got? Why have I got it? What happens if? Because, Bill, you and I, as a nice sense, are more toward the end of our lives. We've got plenty of years left, but so the family understand what we've got and why is so important. And I'm passionate about this intergenerational planning, is as much to know what have you got and what's it there for. So why am I not taking that income, or I am taking that income, is really important. That's where the advisor comes in to help the family, because at the end of the day, I'm like you, Bill. I've worked really hard to get what I've got. I'm enjoying life immensely. So this advisor is so important. And we've mentioned it on previous calls, but Bill, and we shall come back to it. I sit down with mine every year and do a cash flow modeling to show exactly what income I need, what income I'm getting. At the minute, as you know, Bill, since we spoke last, markets are a little bit better at the minute. That helps. So I think it's really important. But the key is get the advisor that you can relate to, that gets you. Does that make sense? So that is so important.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. So what are the sort of mainline segments, if you wish, that a financial advisor would address?
So for me, if you look at what my advisor does for us, he looks after if you think I'm in this hybrid role, as you know, I'm sort of semi-retired, but I'm not. So for me, he's put in, I think I think about it as strands of advice. So to me, we've got in place, right, if something happens to me, let's be blunt, if I finish this call, I walk out and the tree in my garden that I'm really worried about falls on my head, actually, what happens if Ian dies? Right, I have got my wills in place. So he's helped me get my wills in place. And believe it or not, at my age, I'm a massive fan of lasting power of attorneys, which is something I'm sure we'll come back to another time, another place, Bill, because we spent hours on that. So he's there. What happens if Ian does this? As much as what happens if Nicole does this. So for me, he's about what happens if something happens early? What happens with my money that I've got currently and how am I managing my investment? He helps me look at that. And also the strategy of, right, what do you want to happen with your money when you're not here? Not early death, but hopefully, as I've said before so many times on this call, on the 28th of this month, my mum hits 99. So I hope I live as long as her, fingers crossed. So it's all the constituents part, Bill, to really stop you and think, right, is that right? Making sure you lose the right tax breaks or what you want allowances in the jurisdictions you work in is so important. And I have seen a couple of articles that have clearly demonstrated that you get better returns having an advisor. They help you achieve more. I accept some people like to do it themselves, self-select, that's fine. But my personal opinion is over the years that I've been doing this, having an advisor really does help you.
Let's, at the top of the broadcast, I was talking about the difference between the financial advisor and the investment advisor. Obviously, there's connection between the two, but would you agree that the investment advisor is principally there to advise on investments, buy this, sell this, buy, whatever equities, fixed incomes, etc. And in some respects, you could say that's a fairly narrow channel of advice because it's really just going down the investment path, whereas the financial advisor has got a much more panoramic view of you, your family, etc. Now, granted, as part of the financial panorama, there is obviously the investment piece. But would you agree that, there is a significant enough difference to be able to sort of think, well, wait a minute, what do I really need here? What kind of advisor should I best get?
Bill, you've done a really good summary, actually. So I think to me, an investment advisor is exactly says what on the tin. The investment advisor is helping decide where the money that your advisor might be taking from you is invested. So there's different types of funds and different types of strategy. One of the jobs I did over the years, I was lucky enough to be a trustee of a big final salary scheme in the UK. We had investment advisors coming in to advise us of our investment strategy to meet our liabilities within that final salary scheme. So that's at a very high level. For most clients or most individuals, we've got money that we give to somebody to invest in different types of tax wrapper, pensions, maybe bonds, ISAs, loads of plethora of things. So behind there sits an investment advisor who says, this is where I think we should be investing. That is a different skill. A lot of advisors, financial advisors, don't want to get into that too much detail because I've just been doing a lot of work, and we've had this about the emotional roller coaster of investing. Most investors will buy more when they're at the top of the market and sell when they're at the bottom of the market. At the minute, most investment managers are emotionally detached, which is a great thing to do. So they're probably thinking they've got a great opportunity to buy at a discount. So I think an investment advisor, to me, is very specific about helping the advisor with where their investment strategy is going to be, rather than necessarily directly with the clients. I see them as stage removed from that pure Rob sitting down, right, Ian, this is what you've got to do.
I'm wondering, therefore, if realistically, then we're kind of talking about a double-edged sword issue here. That to have the financial advisor who has that, as I call it, the panoramic view, which I think is critical, absolutely essential. But are you suggesting perhaps that somewhere in the middle of that there should be an investment advisor around the table as well?
Not necessarily around the table. I don't think it necessarily goes that far. I think behind the scenes, most advisors have a sort of, they build portfolios based on your attitude to risk. That portfolio is usually, there is an investment advisor that helps build that portfolio. So I think it's almost 2 or 3 stages removed. Funny enough, what we're starting to see a little bit in the UK is advisors beginning to really specialize in certain markets. So, for instance, Rob, who looks after me, he's got an advisor that he refers people on to later life planning. What should you do? And I think that's going to become more relevant as you get through, because I think the investment advisor sits behind the scenes and helps build the portfolios or whatever. Because you know, Bill, we've been around a long time. As sure as eggs are eggs, if you and I started doing investment advice, whatever we said would go up or go down at the wrong times. So you've got to be very detached and believe. And most investment managers have a very specific strategy for their funds. The investment advisor sits there and analyzes those to make sure they fit in with that portfolio based on the attitude to risk. So I think it's 2 or 3 stages in route. Can I just say, obviously, if you've got an awful lot of money, you might be at the stage whereby you have an advisor and an investment advisor at every meeting. But for the vast majority of us, we're not the super wealthy people, but the high, obviously I appreciate high net worth individuals may be a situation where they have millions and millions. But that's a different ball game, I personally think, Bill.
Yeah, I think you make an extremely good point there. When you're referring to your advisor, where he's talking about life planning, and it's so important as an integral part of overall life planning, particularly for the older years, that you get all of these sort of things in place, because when you're young and you can make mistakes, shall we say, in investments, you can recoup, you can recover. You buy shares in X and the share price, hits the floor, and you think, oh my goodness me, what will I do? Well, you just go out and buy shares in Y because you've got salary or something like that coming in to fill up the bucket again, so to speak. Whereas in later life, that's just perhaps not as simple or as straightforward or as convenient for you. So, that combination inside the life planning thing, which involves health, et cetera, we understand. I think that's critically important.
Yeah, Bill, absolutely right. And I think, so to me, what an advisor does is give you this lovely reassurance. The investment advisor is doing exactly what he's saying. He's understanding based on client's attitude to risk. In the UK, we have lots of businesses have like model portfolios. They might say this full portfolio suits this attitude to risk, and I'm sure it's the same around the world. Obviously, there are some very sophisticated financial advisors that play probably in both those fields. Don't come across them too often because actually, I don't think they always want to be a stage removed so they can talk and go, right, I am not making the investment decision. Now, you and I know that some people, some individuals, really want to make all their own investment decisions. What they want is the appropriate wrapper to do that in. That's very much a self-select basis. And there is, we've seen a growth in that. And, I met a client recently who actually wanted to do half his money he wanted to play with, in inverted commas, half the time he wanted it invested through an institution. And what they did was have a bet at the end of the year. Whoever was ahead bought the other dinner. I quite like that, Bill. If I'm really honest, it floated my boat. It was a bit of fun because I think what we mustn't get away from, Bill, you and I are quite of the positive nature people. financial advice is about having fun to make sure you've got sufficient income to enjoy. And that is absolutely paramount in my mind. This is not all save for the future, my boy, and don't spend any money. Absolutely not. You know, we are just deciding, fun enough, this weekend, my family and other half, we're all off to London to see Cirque du Soleil. Why? Because I thought it was a nice idea to do and enjoy. And I've got enough money because my advisors allowed me to have enough money to be able to do it, which is a lovely position to be in. And I'm very conscious how lucky I am.
Just as long as we're not going to rely on you to make the dinner reservation, then I think we should be.
Well, do you know what, Bill? I've just double checked that the restaurant I've booked nearby is for the right day. Thanks, Bill, for reminding me. Yes,
I should think so. well, I'm sure there's a lot of material in there, and I'm sure we'll have to come back to this subject. So, thank you for joining me. I'm Bill Story of the Olderhood Group, and my guest today has been Ian Price, financial consultant in the UK. And we'll catch you next time. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Bill.